Okay, my name is Taylor Smith, and this is my photo book. I had to choose a different publishing website because of the time frame, so I was unable to print the front of the cover. This is a linen cover. It would have been embossed, and I unfortunately didn't have the funds to do that. But the cover title was Dans le Noir, which means in the dark in French. I felt like it did really well to express kind of the theme of my book. All of my pages are in black and white, printed on matte paper. And then my images are kind of changed in format. I'm just going to run through the visuals of it and then discuss kind of the themes. So I did have some variation of doing spreads and doing individual pictures and different layouts. Some of the images I did happen to change prior to receiving feedback. Other ones I did not. I did notice that the publishing company had an editor that if they thought the image was upside down, they flipped it into the correct way without approval. So the ones that were intentionally put upside down were not kept. All right. So this one is oriented upwards, but it was intentionally supposed to be upside down, and that was supposed to be kind of a foreshadowing of my theme. So I stated in my proposal that I wish to make a photo book that challenged my original perception of what a photo book should present. Originally, I had this notion that the book had to possess the best, most vibrant and technical work to be worth binding and presenting to the viewer. So this time, I intentionally chose to work with black and white to see how the texture and contrast would impact the understanding and appreciation of the work. So the themes I wanted to incorporate were that of grit, isolation, desecration, and darkness. And I found much of what appealed to these ideas were captured in a popular historic cemetery in Atlanta, Georgia. And my intention was not to have the images solely reflect that of a graveyard, but I did find a pattern of suggestion in the images that possess these concepts. I did choose to eliminate the more obvious images, such as the memorial garden of veterans and a sea of gravestones, as well as the obvious skyline that didn't really make sense. I wanted to keep the focus on objects and textures rather than landscapes. So in the feedback regarding my proposal, it was stated that the images are intriguing, but the message was unclear. And this honestly was my intention. I feel like that's kind of the point of artistic creation in general. I believe the images need to be compelling in a sequence that influences the viewer to desire to seek understanding. And I think that we interpret art in ways that apply our own experience in the world. So I found myself being too literal and simply displaying beautiful images previously, just in a compilation with no connection to one another. So here I made it connections between the images, almost suggestive of a dystopia among an industrial world. So as described in my critique of my proposal, this idea of femininity scattered across, so the fabric here, and then we have images of plant life, and then we had this femininity illuminated with this abrupt engraving of our mother here. And so instead of leaving this on one page, I put kind of a figure that would be a literal suggestion of the female body, which I feel like this shows a representation of Mother Nature and how mankind has placed this inevitable destruction upon it. And it makes the appearance of contrast using literal and figurative demonstrations of death and degradation. So I recognize that this page might be busy with the triptych adjacent to a single image, which is what you've described in my feedback, but I obviously wasn't able to change it. And I still feel that This is more intentionally a literal and aggressive manner to impose that idea of responsibility on society, because this does say erected by his friends of Atlanta, Georgia. It's very obvious. It is a monument, but I felt like it could be interpreted in terms of, you know, we have in the middle Mother Nature, a beautiful river, a rock bed of water. These are some elements of water, but these are also industrial portions of it. So it's more of like, you know, this is our responsibility. We put this on our planet. So, and then that is great in contrast to the imperfections and the rotting of our plant life, such as this cactus. I loved the textures here. And then we have the degradation of our man-made structures, essentially being like, yes, we put all this effort into civilization, and yet we just, you know, destroy it. And then we see portions of like the earth kind of fighting back. So here, this is a raised framing of a grave, but the earth has kind of shifted upward and kind of I guess I have this thing of like being at odds. So it's like almost like you put this here, and I don't want it to be here. This is not of my nature. And I also kind of illuminated that in this picture here. So we have the brick paved walkway being eroded by the original earth that it's oppressing. And then I also have figures of monuments being tarped over, essentially suggesting that it was a metaphor for covering up the consequences of our own selfishness and civilization, of basically being like, we've done all this terror to the landscape and we can't take care of the items that we've even placed upon them, so let's just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. And then there are some things, so this I just felt like was very coincidental. I love playing on words, and I did a lot of that in terms of viewing other photo books and work of other people. I love when there's text that could also be underlying meaning. So this obviously was a mausoleum of someone with the last name Graves, but I just liked that was more of like an obvious connection to the other graves. So I felt like that would be very cool. So again, we have the tarp here. We have the cradle graves of children. And then I loved the texture of this chair or this bench. And I think I viewed it as a sense of our resting place and our need for contemplation of the destruction that we're causing and the selfishness. And then I did recognize that you saw the engraving here. I wanted that to be the focus. I didn't want the remaining headstone to be present. And these suggestive markings signal to the viewer as like the beloved child is the viewer. And I've come up with kind of like a quote of something that I felt like was representative of that. And it's such as saying, "Beloved child, open your eyes and see what we have done to our mother." And then this is our figure kind of looking in the direction of the viewer. And then a reminder, I have reminders throughout the book of the natural beauty of our world and how it needs to be recognized and not overshadowed and just really appreciated. Visually, I'm really happy with this book. I really love all the individual images, and I love how they work together. I think that I had to kind of get past my desire to have everything exactly sharp and focused and bright and vibrant. And I think that that really pushed my artistic envelope. And I feel like I've had a lot of restraint thus far in the digital photography program. So I felt like this was a real growing experience for me. I don't think that all of my photos, and if I were to produce more, would be black and white. I think that this offered kind of a stepping stone for me, and I'm really proud of how it turned out. And I really look forward to making more art in this manner. I think that anything that I produce in the future, I would really like to incorporate text. There was an artist that we read with photo books that they had written, I think it wasn't Kelly Connell, it was Wynant. I don't remember her first name, but she had written her own text first of something or an idea that she wanted to embody. And then she took images to reflect that and had it pasted and scattered throughout the book. So I think that's something that I would like to work on next. Thank you so much for this class. I really did enjoy, and I feel like this has been the most impactful so far.